Hello everyone, and welcome to what I hope will be a series of tutorials about Discovery Freelancer PvP. This video will focus on snub group fights specifically, and I apologize in advance for my noisy breathing. I picked up a strong cold 2 days ago, which makes constantly talking harder. Anyways, enjoy the video. Alright, so what is a group fight? A group fight is any fight involving 3 or more ships on both sides. And in this video, we'll be mostly focusing on snub group fighting. It is a widely accepted tactic that everyone shoots one target. If you spread out targets or don't have a unified target to shoot, generally you will do badly than the ones focusing one target. There are two main concepts of the group fights, which is aiming and dodging. We have Karst here. Say hello.
Hello, users.
Who will help me demonstrate this, and those are aiming and dodging. We'll start with aiming because it's much simpler and much harder to master. So the hardest thing about aiming itself is how well you can shoot a target, obviously. But the main way you actually hit a target is keeping the range with your opponent. So Karst, you can start running away.
Okay, should I run away to a
Yeah, full dodge.
direction or just dodge?
Full dodge. So when I'm shooting Karst, and I'll have problems hitting him because I'm on 60 FPS right now, but generally purely look at the range bar. You see it's on 175, 178. The point is to get closer than 150. Now he's dodging like this because, yeah, do this.
I'm strafing up and down now and moving my mouse in small circles because I don't want to move around too much or I'm going to lose distance.
You see,
I'm also keeping an eye on my thrust bar because if that runs out, then I'm going to basically instantly stop.
Now I'm at 130 range, and from here, if I were to keep shooting, he would take heavy damage. This is ideally what you want to do in a group fight. You want to get below 150 range and then unleash with all your guns. No matter how much the enemy or in what pattern the enemy dodges, you will be closing range on him. Unless he just does pure boxing, in which case he's gonna eat a lot of damage. You can stop now. So the main part is watch the target's movement. At some point, the target is going to have to do a U-turn, which I'll ask you to now run and do it. And watch my movement. Watch my movement when he does a U-turn. What is a U-turn? It's a turn when the enemy runs out of thruster, and then he will have to make something to gain a bit of thrust, because he can thrust infinitely, right? And if he runs out of thruster, he's basically dead. So do a U-turn. You can see I reversed a bit and followed his movement, and I kept the range at 170, basically. This is ideal. Like, I can hit him from here pretty consistently. Well, not on 60 FPS, but you can see I'm hitting him still. And another turn, again, I'm not letting him move too far away. 200 meters is still okay, because at the end of the day, his thrust is going to go down pretty quickly. Also, if he's doing a full U-turn on you, you can do like a full pass on me. You can try drop a mine. Maybe it hits him. In this case, obviously he made it so that it hit him. But since you have a shield, the target probably doesn't have a shield. It doesn't hurt trying to drop a mine, and there's a chance you hit him on the pass with the mine. It's really useful. And that's pretty much all about aiming. You just want to keep the range. As for the aim itself, there's nobody to help you there. You have to practice it on your own, practice reflexes, responsiveness, and that's it. Now, as for dodging, it's a lot more complex than aiming. First of all, again, the same principle applies. You want to keep range away from your targets this time. If somebody is at 150 meters or less from you, you will want to get them off your ass. There are three main patterns of dodging in general. The main one is just doing pure circles like this. You just take your ship and do circles at the edge of your screen pretty standard, right? You can even do a bit of a bigger circles like this. This is a good way to dodge fire, but it's bad because people will catch up to you pretty quickly. They will get below 150 meters from you, and then it becomes a problem because even though you're dodging, they will start hitting you. The second one requires strafing, a WASD usually, and doing smaller circles like this. This one is also good for dodging, but it also enables you to keep the range longer, but it can become too predictable at some point and you will start getting hit regardless if you strafe. It is generally going to enable you to keep the range longer though. And the last one is doing small EK turns. So basically I am dodging and then I do these small EK turns, which enable me to keep my thrust as long as possible. This is going to make you take the most fire out of all the three patterns for dodging. But if you can keep your thrust for the longest time possible, then you will have to do less U-turns, which will make you have to take less fire there. And now we're going to move to those U-turns specifically because those are super important. Karst, can you start shooting me?
I'm gag. All pink on scanner.
You see he's at 150 range right now from me. I'm trying to dodge, and this is not a good range for me to be at. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to do a full U-turn, face him, and pass him. And now I'm out. Now you can see he completely lost range, and I'm safe from him. Generally, when there's more people in the fight, it's going to be much harder. Let's do it again. Come to like 300. When there's more people in a fight, it's going to be harder, but if you can get to like 300 meters away plus from your target, that's already good enough. Like this. Cars didn't follow my movement too well, so I got to 500 meters, which is very good. You always want to do this. That's basically a U-turn. You just a reverse thrust, make a turn, and then move on the other side. Of course, I did a bad one here. I took too much damage. You will want to do it in a bit of a safer way like this. So combine your thrust and your reverse thrust when you're doing this. And when do you want to do this? You don't want to do this at all. You want to do this only when you're running out of thrust. In this case, I have a cheetah, so it's going to take a longest time for me to run out of it. But say I'm at like 10% of my thrust, I will want to do a U-turn because otherwise, if I run out of thrust, I'm dead. All right, you can start shooting now. Karst, you can stop shooting. Then, what else is there to say about dodging? Never ever drop mines without a shield. And actually, if you're starting with group fighting, don't even drop a mine if you have a shield. There's no point because if the enemies are shooting you, chances are they're not being shot by any of your targets because your target is also dodging. So even if you hit a mine on the enemy, it's likely going to hit the shield, and that's pretty much it. You won't do any actual damage, while you risk getting CD'd or hit by a torp at the same time and damaging yourself. There are some cases where you could drop a mine, but generally stay away from it for now when you're the target. As I've said already before, when you're aiming at somebody, then you can drop a mine when he's about to pass you with the U-turn. And that's pretty much it about dodging. The only thing I would recommend is those three patterns I explained, the wide circles, the WASD with small things, and then the EK part. You want to mix those three patterns because if you do only one of those, you will become, your pattern will become too recognizable for other players. And for example, if you only do the WASD, they will just start blind firing you, quote unquote, and hitting you much more than you should be getting hit for.
That's kind of a general rule, that it's always best to use a maneuver that the enemy doesn't expect, because it only takes one unplanned turn that they didn't see coming that gives you the distance to survive for another few minutes.
Yeah.
They can only react to what they expect.
Yeah, and now for some general tips. We're currently in Omega 11. This is just a general tip for PvP in general. If the system is too bright for aiming, and I've heard this quite a few amount of times, you can just turn off your background stars. Although in this system, there's still I believe there's still this yellow clouds, not yellow, sorry, orange, but it shouldn't be a problem that much.
Well, and also you can turn off bloom with Shift F12. I know a lot of people ask this, especially about places like Tau 37, where it's probably going to help your visibility a lot to have that off.
Yeah. As for another part about aiming is managing your core. Now, this is pretty important. What I would recommend you to do is set up your weapon groups. If you don't know how to set them up, you go to Options, Controls, User Interface. Scroll down way to the bottom. You see Activate Weapon Groups 1 to 6. I have it 1 to 6 put on my keyboard, which means I have 6 weapon groups at my disposal on my snub. Group number 1 is what you see right now. It's all the guns, Debs and Hullbusters in one group. Number 2 is only Hullbusters. Number 3 is only Debs. And this is generally on every ship. Every ship should, in a group fight, should have at least 2 Debs and 4 Hullbusters. That's the ideal setup. You can go with 3 Debs, 3 Hullbusters, but that's a bit harder to utilize efficiently. Then number 4, I have, if you're using 8.33s or like 5.88s, you don't need this, but I'm using acrobatics, which are 4.0 refire, so I can actually chain fire them. So in order to do that, I made a weapon group with only half of the guns in it. So if I press 4 and then 2 really quickly, it's going to start chain firing like this. And this is really useful because it essentially turns my 4.0 weapon into an 8.0 weapon in a group fight, especially with guns as efficient as acrobatics for their speed. Number 5 is a Deb, same thing. I want to chain fire Debs. I press fire.
Chain fire Debs? That's pretty insane.
Yeah, I chain fire Debs when, for example, if you're low on core and the enemy is just regained his shield, shooting him with all your guns is inefficient because look, I'm only shooting like 3 acrobatics, so I want a Deb only group to shield them. So I would shoot them like this when they have a low shield. And then I think number 6 is just Maxim. Yeah, this is just, I have a Maxim in this case, so you want a group with Maxim. You can also put it at 2. Like here, I can put my Maxim as my main weapon group.
If I have a group left over, then I usually have one that has just auto CMs on it, which can be quite useful if you're just dodging anyway. Yeah,
auto CMs is useful if... that's another good point, actually. While you're dodging, auto CMs is good against missiles and stuff, but if you're getting CD'd constantly because they see you have an auto CM, they will
Let's go out of the radiation here. This is a little...
Nah, it's fine. If they CD you because they see you have auto CM, then you will run out of CM super quickly, and then it might be better to just manually CM whenever you hear a missile approaching. You can like practice to press V at times when you're dodging away, although I don't personally do it. I just have like a feeling of when a missile is going to hit, so I try to CM. If not, auto CM, even if they drop all CDs at you, is still okay. Like I have a 170 ammo, it's gonna last a bit. So you don't have to worry about that. What are the best guns for group fights? Generally, faster refires because they are more consistent. The best ones...
Yeah, although that's preference. I mean, of course, faster guns are less efficient. By default, because the formula that calculates gun efficiency takes refire and projectile speed into account. So any gun that's slower firing and slower flying is going to be more efficient. And if you're comfortable with using guns like that, then you have the advantage of potentially getting more out of your energy. I would say that there's no real rule to what guns you should be using as long as you're comfortable using them.
But for beginners, I would definitely recommend 8.33s.
Oh, yeah, certainly, yeah.
Probably flashpoints because they're the most efficient 8.33s. Or 5.88s also work, 6.67. Basically anything that's above 5.0, I would say, works because you don't have to learn how to chain fire, and they're pretty consistent even though they lack efficiency. The speed, of course, the higher the MS, 750 MS guns, the easier you will have a time of hitting somebody, but again, they are less efficient and you will be running out of core, which makes managing your core that much more important, which is what I said, only debs and only hull busters. You will rarely use both in a group fight. You don't want to use this. This is inefficient unless my core is at 100%. You always want to do either debs or acrobatics. And I'm chain firing both of them in this case. You don't have to do both. You can just chain fire debs, or not even chain fire as Karst said, but this is just maximizing.
You would use all guns if you're, say, in the situation where you're a bit further back from the target, and then you suddenly get a short situation where you're in close range again. Maybe use a little more energy there, fire them all, then switch back to the specialized loadouts.
Yeah, as for who to focus in a group fight, people always say focus the vets, focus the aces, and that's correct, but there is a small remark to that. You want to focus the target that has the highest aim to dodge ratio. What does that mean? That means you want to focus the target with the bestest possible aim and the worst possible dodging skills. So somebody who would, if you let him shoot you, he would drain you really quickly, but if you shoot him, you would drop him really quickly. So for instance, if we have somebody who can aim really well and dodge averagely, and somebody who can aim really well and dodge really well, obviously we'll go for the one aiming or dodging averagely because he will go down quicker. There is no reason to make it harder for you in a group fight. If you're not a threat, i.e. if you have a bad aim, there's no reason for you to be the target because you're not doing anything essentially. You are like contributing much less than somebody with a good aim in a group fight. And that's pretty much it. Those are the general tips for group fighting. If Karst has anything to add, I'm hoping to...
I think that very much covers the basics.
Yeah, the main concept
of course,
is...
this applies primarily to snub-only group fights. It becomes a lot more complicated when there's other ship classes involved, but I guess we can do a separate tutorial on that.
The main concept is range. Keep the range with your target when you're focusing it, or if you're dodging, you have to keep the range away from you, from other ships. Do the U-turn as described with reverse thrust. Don't get hit. Also, it's advised if you have shield bats, use them during the U-turn because that's where you will be getting hit the most, and it's really useful to use shield bats that way. In general, also don't drop nukes because I've seen many people get insta-killed while they are the target for no reason. There's no reason to drop nukes when you're the target. You will not do anything useful. All right, then. This was the first...
Wait, there's actually one thing I want to just mention briefly because I occasionally see this question of speaking of loadouts, what shield do you use? Because, I mean, it stands to reason that it's kind of an important part of being targeted, how your shield acts. And unfortunately, I don't think there's really a good answer to that. You kind of have to estimate what sort of weapons people are going to be using.
You could, of course...
Sometimes there is, I think, a choice that's preferable to others.
You could always change your shield before a fight, although that's a nuisance. But in general, say you're like a Hessian right here. I will mostly be fighting Corsairs and military, right? And both of those have laser weapons, laser and photon weapons. So an advanced champion shield is actually the most useful because Salamancas are, I believe, lasers, and if not, they're photons then.
They are.
Yeah.
In Rhineland, you might see tachyons as well, the fast Rhineland guns. Rhineland is kind of a special case because also a lot of people seem to like the slow Flammenwerfer, which are plasma.
But your main enemy is Corsairs, and basically I stick with Champion on most of my ships because it's also good against generic flashpoints, which are used on pretty much any ship. You'll always occasionally encounter like a Corsair with flashpoints or an Outcast with flashpoints. It's not like a new thing. And that's where the Champion shield is generally better. You will also notice that before, when purple goddesses were popular, they would counter the Champion shield, and that was kind of a problem. But now, after the nerf, they're not that good anymore, so you don't have to worry about that. Yeah, that's pretty much it. This was the first tutorial only for snub group fighting against other snubs, and I hope to do a bit more of these. I'm probably going to cover a mine trapping tutorial next, maybe a cruiser tutorial, and as Kar said, like a fleet fight tutorial maybe. Yeah, that was pretty much it. Thank you all for watching the video.